Ah, the liberal tears, they are a-flowing, right? Today we're reading from Brian Stelter of CNN. This is going to be tasty. You got all these folks, they're like, what happened? We don't understand. Maybe we should have done this. Maybe we should have... You should have listened to the American people. Let's get into it. Here we go. If you want to go to this article, Trump's return to power raises serious questions about the media's credibility. Yep. And then they play Trump's entire speech here, his election speech. You know what was crazy about that is Kamala Harris, she left early. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to come back tomorrow. Maybe. She knew damn well she didn't stand a chance. She was so shellacked. I mean, that was just wild, right? Donald Trump's return to power is a hinge point for the American media. In ways big, small, and to be determined, his defeat of Kamala Harris is raising questions about the media's credibility, influence, and audience. Nope, Americans have been doing that for years. It just became wildly obvious in 2024. Number one, nobody tuned in to CNN for election results. I mean, a handful of people did, but most people went to Fox. A lot of people just went elsewhere. They went to all of these other podcasts. I had like 100 people on my live stream. I'm not a huge national politics guy. I don't have any, pull in national politics at all for my channel, but I tagged 100 people consistently. Now, you multiply that by dozens and dozens of influencers and podcasters and vodcasters and all that, you're pulling away from mainstream media. So those of you who joined, thank you. So we got media's credibility, influence, and audience. Some of the questions might not be answerable for years. No, I think they were all answerable with the election results. Not only was it Trump, but it was progressives across the country just took it right in the shorts, except in, Washington and Oregon. And we just got bluer. But, that's bound to happen because you got a bunch of people who are, literally just living in this Pacific Northwest echo chamber. And they think, I don't know what the rest of the country's talking about because we love Tampon Tim. He's great. Tampons in the boys' locker room. This is the best thing ever. I mean, that's needed. But journalists are asking each other, what does this red wave election say about the information environment in the United States? We don't trust it. That's why you come to News for Reasonable People, because you trust me to at least give you what I'm thinking, good, bad, or indifferent. I'll tell you what I'm thinking and I'll tell you why, but I'm not going to sit here and go, maybe because of this, maybe because of that. We don't really know. And just, this vortex of information, which is misleading. And I think that is what most mainstream media is. It's a vortex of misleading and purposeful nonsense, and people who don't do any investigation on their own. They live in this echo chamber, and all you have to do is throw out just a couple of simple questions. Hey, what about that Hunter Biden laptop? The FBI, Department of Homeland Security, they all knew about that a year before, and then they started prepping Facebook that there was going to be a Russian misinformation, a Russian disinfo campaign around said unknown laptop. What about that? Oh, that was, remember the letter with the 51 former military officials? They said it was Russian disinfo. We believe that. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, well, all right, yeah. That's a perfect example because the government basically had the laptop a year ahead of the election and were able to verify it and yet still let out a letter signed by 51, 52, whatever it was, former military officials, where they very, very sneakily said, we believe this sounds like Russian disinfo. And it was just nonsense. It was Hunter Biden's laptop. It linked Hunter Biden. It linked, 10% for the big guy. In the hours after Trump won re-election Tuesday, some of the loyalists asserted that his victory is a complete repudiation of the news media. You know what? Here's where I think that is true. Why did the polls and everything on the polls say it was going to be such a close race? And it wasn't. It wasn't even remotely close. The only thing that got it right was like the betting polls. I mean, yeah, I'm going to trust the betting polls. Maybe we do. They seem to be far more accurate than mainstream media, or any media for that amount, right? For a time on Wednesday morning, the Federalist's lead headline was not about Trump. It was about the corporate media industrial complex being 2024's biggest loser. Well, we all know that mainstream media backs Democrats. So how's that working out? Who's tuning in now, right? Look at CNN's numbers. What are CNN's numbers? They are atrocious. MSNBC is beating them, right? It's wild. Legacy media is officially dead, the Daily Wire podcaster Matt Walsh wrote on X overnight. Their ability to set the narrative has been destroyed. 100% true. 100% true. They no longer set the narrative. And in this election, we learned definitively that, hey, whatever they say, don't trust it. You know why? Because they don't have any trust. They're not putting out stuff that makes sense. Make the blowout that we just experienced in 2024 relative to the lead up day in and day out. Oh, it's going to be such a close election, such a close election. It's going to be so tight that we're going to be counting votes for days and weeks, maybe months. Who knows? Gosh, we might not know until 2026 who won the election. That's what they were saying, right? I mean, not quite that bad, but it was terrible. And then, and then Trump, he's just like, yep, I won. Kamala Harris, we'll be back tomorrow. No, you won't. You'll be back as a loser because that's what happened. You got thumped. You spent $1 billion. Trump spent what? $1/3 billion? 1/3 of the price. Kamala Harris spent $100,000 recreating the set on Call Her Daddy, the Gluck Gluck 9000 podcast. That's what it's known for. Spent $100,000 recreating that set. Trump went to Joe Rogan. Gets, 40, 50 million views. JD Vance goes to Rogan. Gets 15 million views, whatever. Kamala Harris spends $100,000 to recreate the set on Call Her Daddy. Doesn't even get 900,000 views. Doesn't even get 1 million views. Presidential candidate doesn't get 1 million views. And that was the main podcast she went on. She went on Club Shay Shay as well. I mean, let's not even talk about Tampon Tim and his podcast. I mean, did he do any? Who knows? Who cares? He's just running around with his hands like this, right? He's a normal American. Yeah, okay, all right. Load that gun again there, Tampon Tim. Trump declared war on the media in 2016. Tonight, he vanquished them completely. They will never be relevant again, said Matt Walsh. Well, that's not true, but I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with you. That's wishful thinking on Walsh's part. Tuesday's marathon election coverage was a testament to the media's relevance. But the point is that many Trump voters share his wish. They believe the national news media is a big part of what ails America. Not only do they distrust what they read, they often don't read it in the first place. Can anything be done to change that? I have been dining on a heavy diet of CNN because it is so great to see exactly what we're talking about here. I mean, they're blaming everybody under the sun. And they're doing these big, let's take a long introspective look at ourselves and where did we go wrong? You didn't listen to the normal American. You didn't. And you made fun of and you ridiculed anybody who was going to vote for Trump because you said they're fascists. Turns out then way over half of the country is a straight up fascist, including black people. And Latinos and women. You're all a bunch of fascists. Well, that's not how they voted, right? That's not how they voted. So a quote in a recent New York Magazine column channeled that question. The quote from an anonymous TV executive was recirculated on social media Wednesday morning. If half the country has decided that Trump is qualified to be president, that means they're not reading any of this media, and we've lost this audience completely. Huh. You think? That's why nobody watches CNN for actual content. We watch it to make fun of it. That's literally why I turn on CNN. Let's see what CNN has so I can get a good giggle. I mean, it's straight up that bad, right? And the rest of mainstream media isn't far behind. You've just got these people that are so disconnected from reality, or their reality is connected to putting out a message, which is that Kamala Harris was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Tampon Tim, he's just your regular Joe guy. And hey, we're going to go with him, even though he put tampons in the, in the boys' locker rooms. I mean, what a genius. You didn't think that'd come back to bite you in the ass? I mean, there's just so many things that I think kind of came to light during this election, right? A Trump victory means mainstream media is dead in its current form. And the question is, what does it look like after? It didn't just die. It has been dying. And unless you get some folks in there who actually bring content, it's like The View. I mean, if you want to listen to hens peck at each other and not really have any good explanations and or arguments for anything except for their own opinions, I'd say go watch it. But it's terrible. These people don't know anything about what the rest of the world, the United States in particular, is dealing with. They're just so disengaged. Every now and then you get the Republican or the conservative to say something effective, but then she's just drowned out with a bunch of dead is a gross hyperbole, of course, but the comment reflected real concerns that many members of the media have. A severe trust deficit exists between the Trump base and big institutional media outlets. You know why? Because we all know that mainstream media is full of a bunch of crap. They just told us the election was going to be so close. It's going to be so close. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so close. Good Lord, counting those votes for days. I mean, it was wrapped up. I mean, I read that Elon Musk made an app to determine who was going to win. And he walked out at like 10:30. He's like, it's done. Trump won. He left. I don't know if that's true or not. He told that to Dana White. Dana White's like, what? What do you mean? I got an app here I made. I woke up at 4:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. So I spent 10 minutes and made an app, and Trump's going to win, landslide. And he was right. He called it at 10:30. I think Kamala Harris said that she would be back the next morning, and she called that, and she was crying as of early in the evening. I mean, it was early in the evening relative to an election night, right? And that's when I was like, wait a minute, what? I was trying to follow the live stream because I was live streaming. Makes no sense. You know what I mean? I was trying to, in between making semi-intelligent comments, as a real estate guy does following an election that he's told is going to be super close, Kamala Harris walks out, and I'm like, wait a minute. You're going where? How come? Why is she leaving? Hey, anybody, why is she leaving? You know what I mean? Because it wasn't outright done at that point in time. It wasn't done. I mean, the results to us were not done. And yet, folks who knew, oh my gosh, she is toast. And she is toast in such a way that we have not seen before. The popular vote goes to Trump. What? In a text message, a Trump campaign aide suggested that the press should show more humility. How about more honesty? How about actually give us what you're thinking and your opinion? How about balance it out a little bit between Republicans and Democrats? Don't have that one token dude. If you need even more than the 2 podcasts I drop Monday through Friday, and one on Saturday and one on Sunday, head on over to reasonabletv.com. We got you covered. We got a members only section. Here's something you can get a hold of. This one is Seattle homeless camp we live streamed at Dr. Jose Rizal Park goes up in flames. Just absolutely scorched right next to the freeway. We talk about that in depth. What happened? Who set it on fire? Was there anybody in the tents? What's going on? Seattle. Yeah, thriving. How much is that going to cost you? That's going to cost you $3.99 a month. I've dropped that price down to as cheap as any content creator out there. And the reason I wanted to do that, because I want to be able to get people that can price point that they can afford. You can afford $3.99 a month. You know what I mean? And if you can't, you've got a 14-day free trial. Check it out and then see if it works with your life choices. I don't know, but thanks for checking it out in advance. So more humility? No. How about more truthfulness? How about more honesty? How about not just straight up lying to us that what we know not to be true is our truth? I mean, we can see right through these stories. That's the deal. We can see right through these stories. We're not concerned about the trannies. We're not overly concerned about the whole abortion deal. We're concerned about putting bread and butter and food and steaks and, well, maybe not steaks. It's Joe Biden's economy still, right? We're concerned about food, gas prices, utility prices, just regular day-to-day stuff. And yet you've got somebody saying, well, trannies have rights too. And you're like, okay, all right. I mean, whatever. And we just don't listen to them. That raises another question. Do major networks and publications have enough columnists and commenters who reflect the Trump majority's views? If you have to ask that, your head is just right up your you-know-what. There are very, very few. You have lambasted Trump. You've lambasted anybody who supported Trump for years. You literally just a week ago were calling us fascists. Yeah. Huh. How do you think that works? Maybe we have a point, the aide remarked. Maybe misinformation is a lazy word that was never applied to most press coverage of Biden's health or the border. Or inflation. It's transitory. It's only going to be here for just a little bit. Years later, well, Fed's not going to make a cut. Got this going on. Maybe offensive things aren't offensive to most. Yeah. I mean, these are the questions. These are the blinding glimpse of the obvious questions that mainstream media is asking themselves. Maybe offensive things aren't offensive to most. Yeah, they're not. They're not. And we have told you repeatedly over the years by not watching your content. We've gone elsewhere. There's some joker in Seattle with the podcast called News for Reasonable People. Huh. Weird. And even in an extremely anti-conservative setting like Seattle, I'm making a go of it. So coming from behind enemy lines, here we keep going. The mainstream media has held less clout every 4 years. Semaphores Dave Wiggle wrote Wednesday morning. On Harris-friendly cable news, ex-Republicans broadcast their horror at who Trump was and what he'd done, and the new social media and podcasts favored by Republicans. All of that was whining, disconnected from what voters really cared about. And you know where I saw that most? In Kamala Harris's choice of where she would go for her podcast. I mean, there was just no question when Trump got the opportunity to go on Rogan. Yeah, I'll go on. I'll do 3 hours of unedited. Boom, we go. He didn't even get up. He didn't even go to the bathroom. He just sat there like a man and boom, answered, boom, answered, boom, answered. Kamala Harris could barely get through half an hour with Bret Baier on Fox because she doesn't have anything to say. And we literally don't know where was Tim Walz? He was, scurrying around some stage, trying to flit about while he's, worked up about tampons. CNN political commentator Scott Jennings hit that point hard during the 3 a.m. hour of CNN's election coverage. He said Trump's win was something of an indictment of the political information complex. Yeah, which is known as mainstream media because none of us trust it because it's full of just garbage. Report after report of just nonsense and people talking nonsense. We've been sitting around for the last couple of weeks and the story was portrayed was not true, Jennings said. We were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. You know what should have changed the election in 2020? The Hunter Biden laptop. You know why it wasn't? Because mainstream media put the kibosh on it, including my podcast on it. Just, we don't have advertisers, therefore we're not going to push this out. Oh. Interesting. Okay. And it was because the government, through Department of Defense, whatever, FBI, had literally been warning Facebook and a bunch of other media outlets about this upcoming, Russian disinfo campaign about some elusive laptop that was out there. It's not true. It's just Russian nonsense. And the government knew about this way ahead of time. A year ahead of time. And yet the story was let loose that, it sounds like Russian disinfo. We were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. That was my thought. I was sitting there watching all this stuff, and I'm like, is the American public really going to go, trans people need all these rights that, they don't have. And, we've got to be able to make sure that they get those surgeries at the taxpayer's expense. All of this stuff, right? And you're just like, what are you talking about? And then Club Shay Shay, right? And Call Her Daddy. Those were the choices that the Democrats put out. And you're like, nobody watched them at all. I mean, literally almost nobody watched them. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they're barely able to tread water at best. Those were the fundamentals of the election. And so many people that I know to be diehard Democrats, you know what they did? They voted meanly down the party for local. And then at the top, they gave it to Trump resoundingly. And if you're sitting there going, well, not my people, your people did too, because vast majority of America voted for Trump. Weird, right? I mean, who would have known? Trump had better arguments. Trump had better connection. Trump had better decisions on where to go for the podcast. Club Shay Shay and Call Her Daddy. I mean, that says it all right there, right? Because Kamala Harris was given the opportunity to go on Joe Rogan. And I bring up Joe Rogan and the other podcasts because that is where people now go for their information. Look at the views of CNN. Look at the views of Joe Rogan. And that's why CNN continually during the pandemic tried to get Joe Rogan to basically crack by saying that he was using ivermectin, a horse medication. And their doctors straight up lied. Just bald-faced lies. And people that are reasonable are able to understand when Joe Rogan says something. He might be misinformed at times, but he's always open to being corrected if he's wrong. But that doesn't happen all that often. And yet CNN is wrong so often because they just get it wrong. They've got this idea. And how'd that, election 2024 go for CNN? We're reading about it right now. Jennings added, I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, to talk to, and to listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight, over half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough. Well, how about starting with the truth? How about not manipulating the truth? I don't know if that's going to work, Sean. I don't know. Liberal commentator Ashley Allison responded, I think we have to listen to everybody, actually. Wow, that is novel. Really? You got to listen to everybody? You mean everybody might be in your audience? You can't just cherry pick the ones that you've been told to because of your advertisers? Weird. She said, the people who voted for Kamala Harris are struggling too. They're feeling ignored too. Well, we were told that it was going to be, down to the wire, and it wasn't. So we're kind of wondering, what's up with that? What happened? You just got it wildly wrong. You got it wildly wrong. A Republican's pain is no greater or less than a Democrat's pain. Well, the Democrats have had mainstream media to cover their asses for so long that now they're wondering, oh, good Lord, have we lost control? You have. Because people are going anywhere but mainstream media to figure out, all right, where do I get my coverage? Where do I get my information? If history is any guide, Trump is never, ever satisfied with news coverage. He always wants a more pliant propagandist media because he has to push so hard from the right to get even remotely close to center. He even complains about Fox News on a regular basis on specific stories, and they've shanked him. So he's going to push back. He's going to push back on whatever he thinks is a wrongdoing, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just how he rolls. Despite the network's overwhelming support for him, last month he complained to Fox patriarch Rupert Murdoch about the network airing Democratic ads. Well, I saw a lot of those as well. They got paid, right? We all get paid in the end. When I was covering CHOP and I had a live stream with 22,000 people on it, I was like, this is amazing. And then some of our content, I looked at the ad on the content and we were getting paid. We're getting paid by Black Lives Matter. They were running all kinds of ads and they spent big bucks for me to go and make fun of them. Yeah. So, it pays. Thus, Trump's re-election portends a new period of hostility with major media outlets that strive for impartiality as well as bipartisan outlets. Is there anything as impartial? Is there anything as bipartisan? No. Will the Trump administration turn his words against the press into actions? Will he move to revoke licenses? No, he won't, you moron. As he suggested more than a dozen times this year, Trump says a lot of stuff. He'll listen to his advisors. Oh, and by the way, Mark Cuban, you said that Trump doesn't surround himself by strong, intelligent women. And what has he been, White House chief of staff? What's that look like? Huh, interesting. What do a number of his other positions look like? Yeah, women. Interesting. They're strong and intelligent. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, nobody's listening to Mark Cuban. Anyway, will he limit press actions to the White House, barring reporters he doesn't like? One of the biggest things that has been the most entertainment of the Biden administration has been watching Karine Jean-Pierre just absolutely flub press conference after press conference after press conference with her utter lack of intelligence. She's not smart. She looks like a cartoon, and she says stuff that you would expect from Bugs Bunny. I mean, it's been absolutely outstanding to watch Peter Doocy just pick her apart. And it's to the point where it's laughable, right? They have this relationship. It is just laughable. And it wouldn't be laughable if Joe Biden actually had somebody of intelligence instead of a DEI hire in that position. She fit the right mold. She's, lesbian. She's black. She's a female, but she doesn't know anything about anything. And she can do nothing but read off of her script. Oh, good Lord. If it's not on my script, I'm hosed. Peter, you're going to have to refer to the whomever on that one. They'll get you the information. And Peter Doocy's just looking at her like, yeah, okay, whatever. On Wednesday morning, newsroom leaders and owners are reassuring employees that they will have their backs in the uncertain months to come. Now more than ever, we're steadfast in our mission to uphold the principles of independent journalism. What? Condé Nast Chief Roger Lynch wrote in a memo to staffers, "A thriving independent press, as protected by the First Amendment, is vital to democracy and the future we all share." We are way beyond that, ladies and gentlemen. We are way beyond that. We see through that and we go, what a bunch of nonsense. That was some real shenanigans. I mean, that was Sideways 101, wasn't it? Just, it's going to be close. No, it's not. It's not even close. So, after you read this, this is analysis by Brian Stelter from CNN. Just doesn't get it. He just doesn't understand. Hey, when you cover really partisan, just the Democrats, and you leave Republicans out of everything, half the country isn't going to pay attention, and the other half knows it's nonsense, and yet they won't come out and say it. And yet the viewership is reflected in the numbers. How's CNN's numbers? What does that look like? I hear Elon Musk is going to buy CNN. I'm going to leave you with that one. Thanks so much for being here. Catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.